Hey everyone, this is Attorney Andre. I want to talk to you about bankruptcy because so many people say that you can get out of debt if you just file for bankruptcy, or it doesn't matter how much debt you can take on because if things get really bad, I'll just file for bankruptcy. That doesn't work. Bankruptcy should be your last resort. You shouldn't even be thinking about bankruptcy, especially personal bankruptcy. There's a difference between business bankruptcy and personal bankruptcy. Business bankruptcy can be used to restructure debt. It has its tools. It's very useful in certain circumstances, and there are a lot of very big businesses that went through bankruptcy, restructured their debt, and came out more prosperous on the other side. With personal bankruptcy, it's a totally different story. First of all, your personal bankruptcy is broken up between chapter 7 and chapter 13. Chapter 13 is essentially a restructuring of the debt where you liquidate some assets, but you enter into a payment plan. That payment plan can roughly be between 3 to 7 years, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But that payment plan really is a restructure, and if you miss that payment plan, then everything gets thrown out the window. If you follow that payment plan, and of course you can file a motion to modify it in the court, but if you generally follow that payment plan, your debts will be discharged. They'll be considered paid. Chapter 7 is really what people want to go for because Chapter 7 is essentially liquidate everything that can be liquidated, throw it at the debt. If it's enough, great. If it's not enough, then the rest is just discharged. But for that, you need to have a receiver. And what a receiver does, it's a court appointed person, usually a lawyer or a law firm. And what they'll do generally is that they'll take possession of all of your assets and they'll start selling them if they can be sold and tell the court what can be sold, what can't be sold, and which debts can be discharged and which debts can't be discharged. And essentially, your whole life, your whole financial life is going to be in the arms of the receiver, someone you don't know, someone that really doesn't care about you, someone that's just doing their job. And also, the receiver is not doing it for free either. A receiver is getting paid. So the receiver is getting paid, and he's getting paid from the assets that are liquidated because no one's working for free. I'll tell you that. Now, what happens if you get into this situation where you need to file for bankruptcy? Personal bankruptcy, again, not business bankruptcy. It's going to destroy your credit score. And a lot of people say, well, I don't care about credit score. I'm just going to pay everything in cash. But look what you need a credit score for. You need a credit score to lease an apartment. A lot of times, institutional landlords will run your credit. And if you don't qualify, then the homeowner association or the condo association or the landlord, they won't even approve you for a lease. Same thing with buying a home. You need a credit score for a loan, obviously, but even more than that, a lot of homes nowadays, they're in condo associations or HOAs, and they run a credit check. And if you don't qualify under their standards, then you won't be approved for the house, even if you can afford the house. And I have a case right now, super interesting case, where my client is a doctor. He's trying to buy a piece of property for $300,000. He can pay the $300,000 in cash, but because his credit score is so low, because he went through multiple bankruptcies, the condo association won't approve him. And now he needs someone to essentially co-buy it with him. He needs to buy the place in essentially a joint tenancy, in a partnership, because he can't alone qualify to live in the condo association. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. You have a situation where destroying your credit score can wreak havoc on your life. It really can. From personal loans that you might need, to paying for a car or getting a loan on a car, to even finding a job or a place to live. You really don't want to mess around with the credit score. So for those reasons, I think that bankruptcy is really the last resort. You shouldn't do it. Now, how would you do it if you're in that kind of situation? Well, the first thing I would do is I would kind of take a look at what I have. Because remember, in a bankruptcy, you're going to have to liquidate some assets anyways. So figure out what you can sell. Jewelry, if it's a watch, maybe it's your home. Maybe you want to sell something else. I mean, stocks or certificates of deposit or certain things that you can legally sell. But sell something, liquidate your assets, and see how much of that debt you can tackle. Because a lot of the times for bankruptcy, they're going to force you to liquidate your assets anyways. Once you do that, kind of structure your debt as the easiest thing to pay off, the hardest thing to pay off. So for example, if I have a debt of $500 and I can pay that off really quickly, I would just get rid of that. And then the hardest thing will probably be the most expensive thing, or maybe it's vice versa, depending on what you're valuing as most or least important. I know there are theories and guides out there of whether you should pay the most amount first or the least amount first. To me, in my head, it doesn't really matter, because if you've got, let's say, $50,000 in debt and it's scattered across different credit cards or different funds, I guess the most important thing is to reduce your interest rate. So that's kind of how I would do it if I were in that situation. I would figure out which has the most interest rate and I would pay that off first. Because the reality is that a credit card debt that has a 25% interest rate is crazy. That's how I would handle it. That's how I would be in that situation. But frankly, I would try to avoid being in that situation entirely. If you're not in debt, don't get into it. But if you are in debt, probably what you should do is, after you pay off that debt, don't say, "Oh, thank God, I'm out of debt. Breath of fresh air." No, no, you want to stay out of debt. So keep working on it. Use that same plan and avoid really all consumer debt. Avoid all personal debt. And when it comes to your business, that's a totally different story. Business debt can be positive if it generates positive cash flow, but personal debt, there's never a reason to take on personal debt. Talk to you soon. Let me know, have you went through bankruptcy? What was your experience? What was your experience with the receiver? That can't be fun. Like, comment, subscribe. Talk to you later.